Just import. I legit think he goes first.
That's what we have to do. That's
You see.
Yeah.
So it's really one.
I put in the office building with the optometrist.
Okay. You're still down there. So it's
Correct. We turned 5 in January.
Yeah.
Less than 5.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
And we had this growing. And then we looked at renovating our current space or it's expensive. Happy retirement.
Yeah. We live, yeah. Too fast. And I have to use it.
That's like going on, you know, I accept the picture of them. It's just like, my health, it's like, hey, all right, do this.
Decade, or I decided to go back to school in my 30s from the doctor. And yeah, I remember you're sitting in a business practice class, and anybody who owns and operates their own practice, they're crazy. Here I am, and building my own building from scratch. So life is fun that way.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and it's a 3-minute commute. It's great. My family appreciates that.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Oh, right. Well, I am doing only full-time doctor.
Well,
I'm a little busy.
I drove up today, so right on.
It's probably the time. Somebody's in town. Crazy.
That's why all airports did not just drive over there. It's supposed to.
I had no practice. I had practice.
Oh. Mhm.
Together. And I had to job because late season. Things like that, and be a problem, get back to. Get across the way from. And time on all their activities.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
not gonna eat those. So, I just, was like, no, this is gonna fly by.
I agree.
Oh, can you?
Yes. And we're in the newborn twos, we were following threes. On a child.
Wow. Oh, you just said one. Yeah, different challenges. Between. You know, this now. It's just translated. Oh, yeah. So, all this now. It's just turned. So, 30 years, right?
Like there's something on the other.
So that's that, but.
I just about this week. Yes. Can't believe it's turned 14 and it's not even to drive. And fun, especially things are between there and different pretty good.
The first time.
I'll give that. Mhm. Mhm.
In her practice. Has you really so there. They're all this kind of. Sorry.
Mhm.
It's also all last students.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I think we're expecting one more. Is this quorum with, does Megan count? Megan doesn't count, does she? She does count, oh, we have quorum count. Yeah, that was my question in our meeting this morning. I was like,
Oh.
Hillary, do you have me?
yeah, yes, sorry.
No problem, thanks.
Thompson, Steiger, Samuelson, Forst.
Here,
All
right,
Eaton. Hinders,
Here,
Reganator.
Hey, are you guys? I can't hear. I heard Hillary, but I don't hear anybody else.
I'm right there with you, Luke.
Okay. The uh the mics on that little screen thing, Elliot, might be muted.
What about now?
I got you.
All right. Never had to do that before.
First time for everything.
I made a motion to approve the agenda.
I need a second.
Forrest will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 4 is the approval of the October 27th, 25 minutes.
They're like, bro. Yeah, bro.
Any changes to the minutes for October 27th? Hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion
He
to
doesn't really do much.
approve the October 27th
He
minutes.
plays it like.
Samuelson, a motion.
Second hinders.
Howard's on now. Hillary.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Shifting.
Item,
Go ahead.
we're getting a lot of background
Good
noise
boy.
from somebody.
Brent, we're getting residuals from you.
Thank you. Item number 5, I'd like to welcome all the guests that have joined us on Zoom and here in person tonight. Would any members of the public that are here in person like to make a comment on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? And anyone on Zoom? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to the first substantive item. It's a public hearing and recommendation on a zoning amendment to the Norwalk zoning ordinance related to gates on commercial property. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at 5:49 p.m. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
I'm gonna pass the ball off
Oh,
to Luke on this
alright.
item.
Luke?
All right, you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. So a while back, we had a couple projects, well, really going back quite a long time. We've had some barriers or gates put up across town that either seek permission from the city or didn't. More recently, we've had a few on commercial properties that have been proposed. And in digging into it, we really found that there wasn't a whole lot of zoning information about gates specifically. We have stuff about fences, but that's about it. So we wanted to put some regulations in place about gates on commercial properties, industrial properties, to be a little more upfront about how that would work. Also wanting to make sure that our fire code and our fire department access concerns are addressed. Those were currently included in some of the fire code sections, and there's going to be some changes to that as well that I've added to the staff report after talking with fire department staff today. But that'll end up being fire code changes, not zoning ordinance changes. So that won't change too much what you're seeing here. But the general gist of it is we're wanting to put some kind of regulation and process in place for approving a gate at a commercial or industrial property. It can take kind of a couple different forms. Our code currently really talks about gates in a manner of like gatehouse or security for like a large industrial site or something, um, or potentially a gated neighborhood. But it doesn't talk a lot about gating off, if you wanted to restrict access to your parking lot after hours and those types of things. So this attempts to address kind of all of that. Um, the details of it, again, focusing on commercial industrial properties, we go ahead and we define what security gate means. Um, we included a lot of different options for that: sliding, swinging, retracting, all those things. One thing we did want to identify is a chain that would get stretched across to block something out would be considered similarly. Um, Mainly because it would still restrict that same access. And we know that one of the properties that hasn't done anything yet that's building out that kind of was asking to do stuff. One of the solutions they looked at was a retractable chain gate that would kind of retract back into a bollard. There's another property that's currently using a plastic chain to restrict some access. So we want to make sure that we kind of we're all encompassing. So even though we're talking about gates, it's not always just a firm structural gate. It could be something less tangible that serves the same function. We're going to make sure that things are compliant with our international fire code. There's two sections on that: 503.6, which goes over security gates, and then D103.5, which is the apparatus access road and gates on that. That is the section kind of on page 2 of the staff report I updated this afternoon. There's a series of 7 things that our fire department is going to make some adjustments to the fire code on. All of those items are already kind of addressed in the fire code. We're just being a little more deliberate with some things. So, for example, I think gate width minimum was 12 feet in the fire code. We're going to increase that up to 14 feet so that it works better with the equipment that we have at Norwalk. Some other things added in there, wanting to provide provisions for pedestrian access, whether that be if it's a big facility and it's fenced in and then there's a drive gate, we would expect a pedestrian gate next to it so that you didn't have to get in the travel way to, walk through it if someone ever needed to. Or it can just be simply the fact that the gate's only blocking off the driveway and there's access to walk around it. Um, Having some signage that talks about there being a locked gate ahead. A lot of these regulations have to do with like what happens when a vehicle goes into a space and it's gated up, and how do we make sure that they can safely then leave that space. So having some minimum setbacks, some uh, uh, materials that or some kind of retro reflectorization so that you can see it at night. Want to make sure that they're corrosion resistant materials so we don't end up with um, rusty gates and that type of stuff. And then providing again some of that space for vehicle turnaround. We tried to be kind of nebulous in how we worded that. Um, because again, what we don't have a firm grasp on what exactly that would be. We know that there are situations where people are going to want to block off their drive because of how it's designed right at the property line, and we want to make sure that there's still some turnaround areas so that people aren't having to back out onto a public road. Um, at the same time, if we have a large industrial user at some point, um, we would anticipate, especially if it was something that was like locked down all the time, wanting there to be some queuing so that, if people are going into a data center, say, to work in the morning and they got a badge in at the front gate, you would expect there to be some drive queuing that would occur in that scenario. Um, as far as how we would consider them. In a new development, we would want that to be included on a site plan so that we could review it internally, and then we would just approve that through the site plan. Or if it's something being added after the initial development, having them submit a fence permit Really, the gate kind of locks in pretty well with what a fence would be. And requiring a permit will give us the opportunity to do review, whether that be at the site plan level for a new development or internally a site plan review after the fact. Um, that kind of lets us have our check with planning and then also involving fire department with those reviews as well. So that's the gist of what we're trying to do. It's, you know, I'm not real set on any of this stuff, so if there's things that you like or don't like, there's not a whole lot of urgency with this right now. But just wanting to move it along and get any reaction, and we can make amendments if you want to table it and bring it back and see other things, or if you want to make recommendations and then have us make those changes before council, we can do that. We're really open to however you want to move forward from a commission perspective.
Thanks, Luke. Would any members of the public like to make a comment on item number 6?
My name is Russ Hickson. I'm the current chairman of the board of Providence Christian School. We're just right over here in the old Redeemer Lutheran Church building. We have 20 students right now, not a big presence, but we're just starting. We're fully accredited Christian school, so we're licensed with the state of Iowa. We did have, I think, as Luke might have mentioned, we're one that put up a chain. This is our chain. It's a plastic chain. It hooks to 2 posts with 2 magnets. We bought it like that so that it would not interfere with emergency personnel, so that it can be driven right through with no damage. It comes right off. In fact, we have a security camera. We got in one morning, it was down. We looked and a biker had hit it and it came off. The reason we put it there is we have children that go from the door, our entry door, through the day. We'll go out to the playground and enter the playground there. We didn't do it at first. We operated last year without a problem, but we've now experienced a problem with traffic constantly going through there. People use our lot to turn around and go back the other way. One of my teachers told me that we had a situation where a horse trailer came through there when she's taking kids out. And so we said, okay, we got to do something about this to protect our children. And so we came up with a situation where we just put the plastic up. It's not a hard barrier, but it's a visual barrier because people going by will see it and they just won't turn in there. It's our main entrance on Highway 28 that we had a problem with, because we have another entrance off Mayford on the side, which is also a valid entrance. And they won't pull in there, they'll use to pull out there. And so we chose to block off the one on 28. And we'll just do it temporarily. So we'll do it when we have kids. We'll do it at certain times of the day. But it's not made to be permanent. It's not there all the time, or doesn't have to be. And so when I saw this, I was concerned that, okay, will this affect us? And I just want clarification on will it not? Because obviously as a startup private Christian school, we can't afford to put a gate in. I did look the way the ordinance was written, and I did have a concern because it said if you want a gate, it has to comply with the International Fire Code, and they have certain gates and restrictions and things like that. They don't provide for any type of chain or anything like that. It's not regulated under the fire code. And so this seemed to say that if you put one in, you got to meet the fire code, which would be thousands and thousands of dollars for us to do that. And there's just no way that we could afford to do that. So that was my first concern, was bringing that to the attention of the city and saying, number one, can we continue to do what we're doing in order for the safety of our children? And if we can't, can we work together to figure out some way that we can, that's not going to break the bank for us? I did look at the International Fire Code. I used to be the city attorney for Windsor Heights and Johnston for years. And the International Fire Code on the access roads appears to apply to those situations where you have an access road that's the sole access road to a building. And the fire chief does have, or the fire whoever's in head of the local fire does have the option to say, I need a second one because I have a risk that this other one could be blocked for some reason. And so they have an option to require two, but ours are off, we have two entrances, 120 feet apart that are off two public roads. And so I don't know that we're required to have two of them anyway. And so I didn't think the temporarily blocking of one for safety purposes would be an issue. But I thought that would be a concern because the way the ordinance is written doesn't make an exception for that, doesn't talk about if there's two accesses and one can be a valid access, then the other one can be blocked without a problem. So that's not addressed there. Also not addressed is we're a school, we're allowed in any district in a community. So we could be in a residential or anything like that. We're not like any other commercial use. And so if you take our building and if we are in a residential area, this code section wouldn't apply to it the way it's written. It only applies to commercial. And so there's I can't see a rational basis for treating us as a school just because we're in one district different than say an elementary school in a residential district that is not under the same regulations or restrictions that we would be under. So that was a concern I had. Obviously, if there was an exemption for schools, then that would be gone. But we obviously, the way I see the code is writing something where as long as you have at least one fire access, and it's used for the safety of students, then all schools should be treated the same in that way. I also had a question of, since obviously this isn't a permanent barrier to anybody, I had a question of, okay, well, then if we took that down and we just put cones, they're not permanent, they're not restriction, they're not covered by the ordinance. And so could we do that then to prevent that traffic while we have kids going in and out and causing a safety concern to our children? So I wanted to raise those issues, see what would apply to us, what wouldn't, and see if we could work through some of those issues to make it work so that we can keep our kids safe, but that we can take care of concerns and not a problem with the city and hearing what they want to do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment.
Dr. Kelly Cook, 1421 Sunset Drive, Iowa Hearing Center. So through our site review process, it came up with our team, with our civil engineer as well as our architect, that we had increasing concerns regarding the security of our property. And so we brought forth the idea to restrict access to our new property for after hours and weekend hours, because our neighbor to the south, 1409 Sunset, is the northern half is a salon and suites, and the southern half is a bar and lounge. And so as I've observed, since Sunset Lounge opened, parking has been an issue, especially on certain holidays, of where parking tends to bleed over into the El Dorado parking lot, into the alleyway behind, as well as on High Road. And so I'm fully aware that a brand new parking lot will seem very appealing to some of those patrons. And so we are asking for some type of restriction for that because of the personal and professional liability that it poses for us. We have really started the main portion of our construction in the last month. And already in the past month, we've had at least one person attempt to park in an active construction zone for the salon to our south. And so I just have pretty significant concerns about allowing access to this brand new facility after hours with some of those patrons to the south. We have proposed different ideas to both the city as well as the fire department, with my architect and our civil engineer, to come to some type of compromise so that everyone's happy that our property is accessible in case of an emergency. And we just want to make sure that we are given that choice.
Thank you for your comment. Would any other members of the public like to make a comment on item number 6? Any questions from the commission before we close the public hearing?
Luke, would you, the two instances that we have here tonight, would you, the plastic chain at the Christian school and the whole, this specifically applying to commercial industrial, is that, do we need to write a wider ordinance or is that a separate line or what do we need to do to address that specifically?
I'll be honest. My thought with commercial industrial, I didn't really think through the idea that a school on commercial property would end up with a different standard than a school in a residential district. So to that, I would say if we wanted it to apply, it should probably read commercial, industrial, and um, not, or maybe just non-residential uses is the way it would be worded. I think that's the wording our code tends to use when it talks about requirements for things that can happen in residential that aren't residential. So there might be some changes to like the that wording of, the title of the section, and then um, security gates shall be allowed on commercial industrial properties. Maybe it's just non-residential use properties with a non-residential use. Um, as far as the fire code, well, let me that would be for the school. For the hearing clinic building, really, I think this works pretty well with what they're trying to do. I think it works pretty well with both of them, at least from a zoning perspective. Um, we have this idea of a minimum setback, but allowing us to reduce that if there's some proper turnaround. So the way that the hearing center's gate would be, it kind of run almost perpendicular to the road to block off their driveway. So the turnaround ability happens um, on the Sunset Lounge building's property because there's kind of a shared driveway there. Um, so I think that works. Um, the question being, does the chain across the school, does that provide enough turnaround if somebody pulls into that driveway approach um, without having to back around? My hope would be that that chain would be visible enough that somebody wouldn't make that turn. Um, but those would probably be the things that would be trickiest. We really tried to write it in a way that it would work with those two properties. Um, on the fire code stuff, appreciate what we're hearing regarding that. Um, just for because P and Z doesn't tend to get into fire code stuff, like that's already adopted. So, I mean, one of the challenges we have with some of these things are, you know, 503.6 and D103.5 are language that's required by City of Norwalk now for any gate. Um, Fire department brought this issue to us because they're like, hey, do you have anything in zoning that would help us figure out these gate deals other than those two sections? We didn't, so we wanted to, put some language together, just so we didn't end up with gates just showing up wherever, right? And if we did happen to get gates showing up all over the place, at least there were some standards to it. So that's really the purpose of this, is to give some guidance in that scenario. Um, I guess I think Jeremy, our fire marshal, was gonna be at this meeting. I don't know if he's in the room or not, and if he would want to speak to any of the fire code stuff that he's made changes to. But the way I read it, a lot of it talks about like if you put a gate up or if you're putting a chain or you're blocking something, it's not that you can't do it, it's just that you have to provide um the minimum clearing opening, so like 14 feet of clearance through everything, and then you've got to provide a way for it to be opened in emergency, right? So if something is connected with magnets, um, it would stand to reason to me that that is easily opened in emergency if something's more locked down and there's a Knox box and a key nearby, just as we require for get it to get into a building. I believe that would meet that intent as well. But I would defer to our fire professionals before I put my foot in my mouth too much.
So would we also, because I guess what I'm the school one, that's a temporary use essentially, right? You're putting it up during the course of your school day. I guess if we could work, maybe we need to work some language in as to temporary versus permanent installation and how we address that.
That was my thought. And
Okay.
I
Maybe
just have one,
go for it, Brent.
yeah, one question for Luke. Luke, Russ had the proposal of exempting out schools from this code section. Obviously, can't exempt them from the fire code. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, exempting them from everything, you'd be A2 through 6 and B and C, you know, I don't have a big heartache. Like, really, what we were trying to do is here was put some stuff in place. So if every commercial property decided, hey, you know what, we want to lock down our parking lot at night, we don't end up with, a bunch of chain link haphazard stuff thrown together, and that there's a little bit of requirement for some things, and then thinking about the safety aspect of it. So, for the most part, I wouldn't have too much heartache exempting a school use from that. Um, I don't think that what we've put in place really prevents them from doing what they're wanting to do. The main thing would be taking a look at that chain and, what does it do for preventing a vehicle from having to back out onto Highway 28. Um, and that's not to say that you can use a chain. Maybe it just needed to be located different on the lot. I don't, yeah, I don't know how feasible that is either, but those are the thoughts.
And I'm just not thinking just of the Providence school, but potential future uses. I think Russ brings up a good issue that schools can be in any zoning district, and it just may be simpler for enforcement in the future
Yeah, I mean, I think
by exempting schools. Yeah.
to that we would want to do one or the other of either make this apply to a school in a residential district by some of the language I mentioned earlier, or just specifically exempt a school. And
Yeah.
I don't,
I
I
don't know
think
if you
it's fine either way.
I don't know that you want to exempt a school. We do a
Yeah.
lot of schools where you end up with like a ring road around the school for fire access. And a lot of them put up gates to keep kids from parking there and those kind of things. And
Mhm.
if they're going to put up a gate there, I would want it to adhere to the standards that we're going to put forth and not something haphazard, right? Because they're going to do it regardless.
Sure.
As I get, if we can write an ordinance, I guess in my mind, that's all encompassing. I view the Christian schools as a kind of a separate temporary versus permanent type of installation. I think is our out there in my
Okay.
mind.
Yeah, I mean, we could put some language in there to differentiate between the two as well.
any other questions before we close the public hearing?
I'm totally random one.
Yep.
Is a Knox box a thing for a gate like this?
That is correct.
Okay. Does the city have one out at the city maintenance facility?
Yes.
Okay. So make sure we're following our own rules.
Yes.
Luke, do we give you enough feedback or what you need to hear out of us?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, do you guys want to see a revision back? I mean, I'm happy to take it back and write some stuff and bring it back to you in 2 weeks, or I can take it for. I mean, again, it's not pressing to get it approved by the end of the year or anything. So,
I'd like to see a revision.
okay.
Fundamentally, I don't think we have any really objections. It's just tweaking language. I
Yep.
think.
We'll go back and we will, if you want to motion to table it, and then I guess in that motion, if you want to be specific on things, but we'll find some ways to deal with temporary stuff. We will take a second look at Jeremy and I will read through the fire code sections and see, make sure we agree on what that's saying. and then we'll find a way to address it for all properties.
And Luke, I'm gonna make a motion just to table the entire ordinance, give you enough latitude if you feel there are any other necessary
Okay.
changes or anything like that, so we're not hamstringing you there. So I just move to table the entire ordinance.
That's fine.
I'll second.
Hillary, would you call a roll, please?
Did we ever close the public hearing?
Oh, yes, close the public hearing at 6:16 PM.
Thank you.
Adopt all previous arguments.
Yeah. Roll. Thank you.
Forst,
Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Hinders,
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thank you, everyone, for your comments.
Thanks, Luke.
Item number 7 is a request from the city of Norwalk for approval of a site plan amendment at the Norwalk Central Sports Complex. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yep, so this is an item that is kind of coming back to you guys in the staff report. I really just wanted to point out in the approved site plan for the entire complex itself, that what we're talking about is the patio space between court building and the private suites, specifically mullets. Anytime we do non-residential site plan, one of the things that we require is building elevations or something adequate to serve as an approvable copy for visual. When the original site plan went through, we didn't have this information. We have it now because Parks and Rec is ready to proceed with installing some pergola structures, getting some walls in place for sitting, and formally building out the patio space, which was outlined on that original site plan. So really these renderings are just to accompany that original document, reaffirm what was in that, so that we can, in the spirit of following our own rules, do that and proceed with construction. So I'll happy to answer any questions there might be, but that's all I've got.
Perfect. Any questions or deliberation from the commission on this item? Looks really cool. Hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the site plan amendment.
Forced motions.
Second, Hinders.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Eaton,
Aye.
Hinders,
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forst,
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Item number 8 is a request from Affinity Credit Union for approval of the site plan of Affinity Credit Union. Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yep. Here. We need to do this so that everybody else can see it. All right, folks on Zoom, can I get head nods? Are you seeing the staff report in Adobe? Great. So
Yep.
awesome. So yes, site plan for Affinity Credit Union. This is a commercial office site plan located in parcel F of the Hughes Century Crossing Planned Unit Development. That's the area zoned for C2 community commercial uses, just like this one. Development history there. The lot is actually part of what was Hughes Century Crossing Plat 6, which dealt mostly with some street construction and also Plat 5, which is north of here. So this lot has been there for a little while. Nearby, we had a couple commercial site plans, one for Hyper Energy Bar and one for Culver's Go earlier in 2025. So this would be the final site in that string of commercial properties backing onto Highway 28 and abutting on Hughes Drive. So this is the southernmost of the three. One of the things that we wanted to point out It's kind of related to vehicular circulation on this property. The original site concept we saw for this had a single access off Hughes Drive. And that was kind of what we were expecting to see in the site plan submittal. Other sites nearby, specifically Hyper, developed first. That kind of triggered the city to advise further on what to do with access. We thought that the best way to go with that would be to do a shared access drive on the north side of this lot, and then maybe have an access on High, but probably not two solo accesses, one on each road for just this parcel. With Hyper kind of hitting some shot clocks on needing to move forward, we decided to go with the split drive plan, which, let me collapse this quick, zoom out. This might look familiar. We did talk about this during the Hyper site plan. So at Hyper Energy Bar, they've got two driveways on their property. One was being shared with Culver's. The other one on the south is entirely on their lot. The development engineer for that project also devised the site plan for this one, so they were able to use that line work to show that double driveway on that Hyper Energy Bar site plan. So we were expecting to see this without a high road access. Just some concerns about how much foot traffic there is during sport tournament time. And the more curb cuts you have, the more potential conflict you have with pedestrians. So that's something that was a concern from the city's side. As far as other site plan details go, the parking's plenty adequate. Open space is good to go. Sign plan looks good. Still working a little bit with the architect on getting material coverages, but everything on the outside of the building is high quality class 1 and 2 material. Go ahead and show the renderings for reference. Yep. So pretty significant amount of stone and metal paneling, concealed fastener, which falls into the class 2 category. So good high quality building materials. I put some stuff on there about the staff analysis related to site coverage, and I kind of did the same thing for Culver's and Hyper. So ultimately, we're recommending denial of the site plan just because of that high road access. We think that's still a concern from a safety perspective. We think that one access on Hughes is adequate. We think that spacing between Hughes Drive and Cherry Parkway for that high road access is a little narrow and could become a bit of a pinch point at times. So that's about all I have from the staff perspective. I'm open to passing it to Luke in case I forgot anything. Otherwise, I can take questions. But Luke, did you have anything to add?
I think you covered a lot of it. Really, again, a lot of our focus on, our recommendation is that high road access. We've had other users look at this spot and had recommended to them that we would not want to approve a high road access. That discussion did come up about the potential for it when there was not a desire to share the drive onto Hughes Drive. I felt like we came back around to a compromise on Hughes where we let them be split but kind of share one driveway apron to Hughes Drive as shown on the site plan here. The other thing I'd note is that SUDAS clearance does provide enough distance for there to potentially be a high road drive, though the city doesn't have to allow access to our streets just because it meets a SUDAS standard. But that SUDAS standard would say 170 feet from Cherry Parkway and 100 feet from Hughes Drive, which I believe the drive as shown is closer than 170 to Cherry.
That's the SUDA standard. Is that 170 and then 100?
Yes. 170 from a collector and then 100 from a or 170 from I think we consider Cherry to be arterial, and then 100 from Hughes as a collector.
One other thing that I needed to mention, any recommendation regarding this site plan also needs to address a waiver request that the city supports. One of the things in our zoning ordinance for parking spaces is setback of 15 feet on commercial property. We went and did some right-of-way acquisition on Cherry Parkway when we did the construction project up there, which shortened up the amount of space they had between the property line and the parking spaces. So that's a request that they are making by default, and we would support that. We don't have any issues there. So that was one final point from the staff side of things. And I will remind the group before the motion or during the motion about that too.
Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to make a comment on item number 8?
Great to see everybody face to face for once. My name is Dean Wilcox. I'm the senior project architect with Newground. We're working with the credit union in the design and construction of their new branch facility. Obviously, this has been a project that's spanned months as far as in the works, and there's been a lot of different changes. I think I'd like to start off by saying one of the critical things in the credit union's consideration of purchasing the site was the access. And so as we got into the project, there was a lot of talk about having a single access point only. However, as we got into the whole discussion about the hyper development, at that point, there was discussion that the possibility of an access onto High Road. And so the site plan is drawn now is really just trying to reflect that conversation, that discussion that we had. And as far as where we stand right now is we would still like to have the access. We feel that the volume of traffic on and off the site that will be the result of the credit union is going to be very minor during the course of the daytime. It's really for their members only. They've got probably about 4 to 5 staff that'll be there permanently. And so as opposed to something like the hyper site where you're going to have traffic in and off the site hourly, you're not going to have that issue here. Access off a High Road definitely makes this property more valuable to the credit union in terms of how it functions. And so with that, we move forward with this. I know you've been working with Brad Kuehl with Bishop Engineering. And so basically we were, putting this in front of the commission, with the idea and hope that it would be approved. So that's kind of where we stand right now. Brad's talked with the credit union. I've talked with the credit union. Again, we talked about the SUDA distances and stuff, and that can be adjusted as far as where that entrance wants to sit. But I think in our discussions, the feeling was that the traffic on High was not going to be that strong a traffic load. And so that's why we went with that. I think one fallback position that, again, I'd like to put in front of the commission tonight, that we would be worth considering would be making it strictly a right turn in, right turn out entrance. That would restrict traffic that as far as anything coming in off a High Road, as far as making a direct left turn into the site, that traffic would have to go back to Hughes and to enter the site. So the entrance then would strictly be traffic coming down High from the east or exiting the site to the west. That's probably our primary issue. I think on the issue of the building material percentages, I'd like to address that very quickly. I know there was some concern as far as the facade that faces Cherry, as far as not having the exact amount of fenestration, which was roughly 30%. We've gone through our calcs right now, and we're roughly at 28.5%. There are ways that we could handle it, but pretty much we would drop a windowsill to the floor, and then in essence, we plant landscaping in front of it. So I'm not certain if that's really the intent as far as what you'd like to see. So
My question with the 2 accesses, if we're anticipating minor traffic footprint for the credit union itself, what reasoning would you have for needing two accesses?
It's really the convenience, that as a member would come onto the site, park, as opposed to having to go all the way back out to Hughes, make a right, make another right, they could be off the site.
Any other questions from the commission for the applicant?
Hello, everyone. Jeremy Smith, CEO at Affinity Credit Union. The only thing that I would maybe add to what Dean talked about too, I think some of our concern with allowing the Hughes Road is also some of the traffic that you see at the other hypers. I haven't been here to see what it has been like in Norwalk, but you see a lot of times that traffic is very backed up. I know in some of these other suburban cities locally, with the hypers being extended and blocking different pathways. And I think that was another concern, or at least allowing of that convenience for members with the Hughes access piece, was anybody trying to make that left-hand turn into that entrance from hyper, if they are backed up. Like I said, I'm not sure what their queuing has looked like. If our members are waiting in that turn lane to get into our property from Hughes, there's just that other convenient entrance from the high road standpoint. So again, I know those things are very popular. A lot of my staff like to frequent those places here locally. So just add to that piece of it as well. Again, from that extra convenience from our member standpoint.
Thank you.
I can offer some just statements about some of the comments. So one of the ones was about having a right in, right out at that high road entrance. That's something that came up in discussions with the project engineer and can be accommodated if, first of all, the commission does not have to agree with staff about that recommendation for denial. I think that if the recommendation were for approval, that it's making sure that that's a right in, right out, as suggested by the applicants themselves, would be a good thing to note. As far as the hyper traffic goes, completely understand the concern about that because I've seen it in West Des Moines. I will say anecdotally, the most cars I've ever seen there is about a dozen. It's got queuing for 32 vehicles. So I don't know how much of a concern that could become over time, but it's understandable. Right now, we're not really seeing that much backup.
Yeah, I'd add to that, Elliot, that us acknowledging that concern is one of the reasons that led us to this compromise of kind of two driveways onto Hughes Drive. So right now, as it's configured, if there's a problem with hyper traffic impacting the credit union, we've got problems with hyper traffic impacting Hughes Drive, right? And that would be a bigger discussion we would need to have with Hughes Drive, with hyper, about keeping them off of Hughes Drive.
And then the only other thing was the architectural thing. There are waivers in some sections of our code for requirements, but not for architectural. So that's something that we're gonna have to figure out on a submission that goes to council. So I've got nothing else to remark on. Happy to answer any questions. Proceed. So, Howard, did you have a remark?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. And just looking at this, right, looking at the high road access that they're requesting, I do believe that the right in and right out is a reasonable kind of compromise. If we're willing to put those concrete kind of medians in there that will not allow a left turn off of high road.
That was going to be my question: is how enforceable is the right in, right out? I mean,
Yeah.
what would prevent somebody from pulling in there and hanging a left? If it's just a sign, I don't see that.
Yeah, you'd have to do something geometrically to prevent it. I mean, there's not, we can't enforce how somebody turns in and out of a drive because
Right.
that's off of private property. So it's not not a PD couldn't sit up there and ticket people for it is what I'm getting at. You would
Yeah,
want to have,
the concrete median would work. I mean, you just,
yeah,
you know,
you'd want to have some kind of hardscaped thing that would direct people to make those movements.
The only other comment I would make, and this kind of tails on what you were saying, Megan, about the need for two. I understand the convenience of it. However, I think a bank differentiates a little bit from a convenience store or a grocery store, where if I'm making a trip to the bank that I'm a member at, it's not like I have somewhere else across the street that's a little bit more convenient to go into. If I'm making a trip to the bank, I'm making a trip to the bank. And I can't say that having a second entrance is going to be a determining factor on whether I go to the bank or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Hughes Drive access is sufficient, but I understand the right in, right out compromise too, and I would be open to that. My other concern is if we put a concrete median where the second access on High Road is currently located, how are we limiting that outlot Y in terms of, future buildability?
So that outlot is,
Is that just that tiny
it's,
strip?
yeah, it's
Okay,
a real
never
small
mind.
piece of land that can't really be
Okay.
developed.
Thank
It's
you.
actually owned by the house to the south.
Okay.
So they would, yeah, if something ever happened on that area, it would likely be that house being removed and combined with that lot, and then we'd be probably looking at Cherry Parkway access. Again, it's residential down there though, so they could always request to make it commercial, but yeah, that'd be a to be seen.
I guess my position would be if the consensus of the commission is to approve with the right in, right out with a physical barrier required.
I think we want to adhere to those SUDA standards of moving that entrance to the east as well to maintain that, if we can, that 170 from Cherry.
And I think regarding that, AJ, I think we just need to, I can't remember off the top of my head what our classification is. They're showing 170 between Hughes Drive and that access, and then 100 between Cherry and that access. It's
Yeah, I
either
think they just got it backwards.
that
I
or
guess
it's
flipped. I
backwards.
think it needs to be flipped
I can't recall off the top of my head which one it is.
in my
but
mind. I guess I'm kind of,
one is 170.
yeah.
Yep.
Totally aside, that's not an always stop down at Hughes and High, is it? It's just traffic coming south has the stop sign?
Correct.
I think it's a three-way.
Is it all way? Is it three-way? Okay.
I think it is.
I just think if it's not, it's just one of those things. I know we've talked a lot about traffic around the,
No, it isn't.
okay.
It's
not
not an
three-way.
always stop. It's
Oh.
just the T.
Okay, I just one of those things that we've talked about this and we've talked about traffic around the ball fields themselves and trying to slow people down. Separate from this issue, sorry, I'm getting off topic, but maybe that's something we want to consider to potentially slow
Yeah.
folks.
I mean, I think that's all interrelated, AJ. I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of what led us to our staff recommendation, and
Yep.
what led us to like every recommendation we've made on high road access is, we wanted to try to limit it.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you guys. I understand where city staff is coming from. I guess I'm kind of in the same boat, I think, as a couple others in the commission. I'd be okay with the right in, right out, just if we change that back, or we adhere to that SUDA standard for the 170 and 100. And it's
Brent?
Yeah, sorry, total parliamentary issue here. Are we out of the hearing and in deliberation at this point?
Not a public hearing, so not as stringent on our
Okay,
forum, so go ahead.
okay. Yeah, I'm in agreement with the right in, right out. I think that makes reasonable sense there. I've seen plenty of places, both in Norwalk and otherwise, where that's able to be restricted with the geometry. So I don't have an issue with approving with that as a condition. What's the if we approve this, does that hamstring any of your ability to review sort of the fenestration requirements and And that, Elliot, or is that independent of our approval?
That would be a separately addressed item.
Okay, so,
With the parking.
okay,
Yeah,
You would just need to, a motion would need to only address the request for the parking setback waiver.
Which I don't think I have any issues with.
yeah,
have any issues with that waiver piece?
no issue.
As that road heads to the west, it's not gonna impede any visual coming around that corner at all, so.
Okay, so if there's no other deliberation, I would entertain a motion to approve the site plan of Affinity Credit Union with the revision to require a write-in, write-out with a physical barrier and to move the setback to meet the SUCO request, SUDAS
Where is that right in, right out located?
on High Road
Thank you.
Eden motions.
to approve the waiver request on the parking matter.
Check my boxes.
I'll make the motion.
Yes.
Any second?
Samuelson will second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Hinders,
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forrest,
Aye.
Eaton,
Aye.
Reagonator.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
You guys.
Sure.
Thank you. I don't think George has joined us tonight. But Holly's here. What update do you have for us tonight, Holly?
Sure, we've got a few. Our phase one of Bucky's recruitment initiative is completed. We had over 3,600 signatures on the petition, hit every major news outlet in central Iowa. Then we sent the formal proposal to their ownership team. They called within a couple of days and they said that they are definitely interested in just taking a look. They'd like to be in this part of the country as they continue to grow north. So our next steps are to work with the DOT on the interchange timing at 35 and the utilities to the proposed site. Then we would host a site visit to our community with their site selector and ownership. So those are the next steps. An update on Project West and the annexation to I-35. We did get a court ruling back about 2 weeks ago. The judge ruled in the city and the State Development Review Board's favors. We're taking the next steps now to move forward with the plans of the annexation, and we really hope that the data center project can move forward with more efficiency now. The Hilton True Hotel plans to open the week of Christmas and have a grand opening in January or February. And since I last saw you all, I think the following have all either broken ground or opened. So Hyper Energy Bar, DeRocher Mixed Use Building downtown, Abelardo's Mexican, Iowa Hearing Center, DeMoss Orthopedic Center, Fairway Frank's Bar and Grill, and Culver's. Next up will be a new pub in the former 804 main building, which is really fun. It's currently being renovated. It's called, or will be called, Marv's Beachside Dive. You'll see a press release coming out in the next couple of weeks announcing their opening, but it's the same owners as Sunset Lounge. So we know that things will be kind of a cool interior just based on all their other metro locations and the work they're doing in there. And then midway into 2026, DeMoss, Pizza Ranch, Culver's, Affinity Credit Union, Iowa Hearing Center should all be open or close to opening. Then we're working to recruit a Tyson's. So the Farm Home Auto Store, which is just a bigger regional based retail center if you've not heard of them or been to them. But we've met with the owners a couple of times. They're looking at sites. We've done actual site visits to a couple of locations. It'd be a really good size facility and they provide some really good retail products for our community. So we hope that works out. Commercial land is now listed and available in Norwalk Central, north of Chatham. So kind of around the Fairway and Hilton and Mutual Smoothie areas. The rest of that land in there is now being brokered. So that's good because that's kind of our phase 2 of Norwalk Central North. And then also in the legacy commercial area, which is just north of Brigham Young. So you've seen the site work happening there. And then we have a lot of prospects for indoor sports and training centers, which are really kind of focused in the Southwest Development Corridor and Norwalk Central. Norwalk's just kind of known for this sports thing now. It's kind of cool. We have continued efforts to recruit a breakfast cafe, a steakhouse, shipping store, an Aldi, indoor adult recreation like a Smash Park, a brew pub or distillery with rooftop patio, and a tunnel car wash. These are all very specific requests. We've met with several tech and data center prospects for our sites in the Southwest corridor, including crypto mining, hyperscalers, AI super speed facilities. So that all really just comes down to water, power, and land availability. But the city's doing everything possible to prep that area for, you know, the high-tech, large-scale, high-value developments. And then last, our foreign relations update. Our police department is involved in a really important initiative. It's a cross-nation police exchange program, and they participated in the state delegation to Kosovo in September. So Chief Staples can give more details if you guys are interested in that. And then we're planning a large multi-country economic forum in 2026 to be held in Norwalk. So more to come on that. But if you guys ever have any questions or want more details, call me, contact me anytime, including our
Thank you for the update.
business on.
Luke, any update for us tonight?
Nothing real substantive.
Great. Elliot, how about you?
So it sounds like Luke was going to work on that update to the Gates and Barriers Code language, bring that back. He's going to be running, probably will be running the meeting next Monday because my dad's having open heart surgery that day. Supposed to be first thing in the morning. So if I get sick of him or he gets sick of me in post-op, maybe I'll go find some Wi-Fi and log in anyway. It's not a serious, it's open heart surgery, but it's like just a thing, done, get out of here. So that's a thing going on in my life, but I may not be at the next meeting, and that's why. So otherwise we'll keep on keeping on. And so now, Luke, can you remind me, because we did the public hearing about gates and barricades, do we need to have a second public hearing?
No, because we opened and closed that, and now we're just getting the details of what's going to go forward locked in.
Okay.
So
cool. Well, that's final thing. I was very, very serious about the remarks that I had in the site plan staff analysis about lot coverage and what goes on land in town. I think that's a very serious thing to think about, and just wanted to verbalize my emphasis for it. So that's all I have.
Thank you, and best of luck to your dad. Our next meeting will be November 24th, 2025 at 5:45 p.m. I would now entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved, Hinders.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
We're adjourned at 6:49.